So Prabhupada was completely unfazed in Mayapur. There was no running water, there was no electricity or anything. He had a jute stick toilet, a hole in the ground with some jute sticks around it. But still he followed exactly the same schedule. He couldn't use his dictaphone machine because there's no electricity. So he had his typewriter under his mosquito net on his bed, and he would type out with his two fingers. The purpose was unfazed. He got up at the same time, he went out for a morning walk, come back and greet the deities. Even though there's no facility, it didn't faze him. He was just, his old schedule he kept maintained perfectly.
In St. James's Park, Prabhupada would constantly be pointing out things, different things. I mean, there was one time we were in a park, and there was that story which I remember, but there was some bird droppings, and Prabhupada was asking, he was saying, what is this? And everyone was kind of looking at the bird droppings and thinking, well, they were kind of thinking, well, maybe Prabhupada means some tea leaf formations, like we could esoterically look at it. And Prabhupada said, what does this tell you? And when everyone was kind of bewildered. And then Prabhupada said, this tells you that the same bird is sleeping on the same branch every night. So Prabhupada said, even the bird becomes attached to his apartment. So Prabhupada said, so be careful.
Having gone to Africa after receiving that garland and blessing from Prabhupada and just the personal contact, I was probably as fired up in my own personal preaching as I had ever been, because and everything was falling into place. I was extremely successful in dealing with Indians, and it was just very inspired. So for a great length of time, that enthusiasm was there, but gradually it did wane, and I had my difficulties in Africa. And one of them was that I had misappropriated some funds and bought this Rolex watch. And I actually bought it for myself. It was one with a striped gold string down it with a gold around it. Anyhow, so I go to India, and I'm feeling really mortified that I've done this. I'm a brahmachari, and watches were kind of like the thing that you could be attached to or something. It was, even though it's bogus, still everybody had watches. So anyhow, I on my going back to India, I've decided I want to give this to Srila Prabhupada. So when I get to Bombay, I remember Prabhupada was walking with a group of devotees, and I walk up and pay my obeisances, and Prabhupada folds his hands and says hello to me, with pranams, and I'm just overwhelmed that he's even noticing me or remembers me, in any way, that his intimate way of dealing with people again. So Shruti Kirti makes an arrangement for me to come up and see Srila Prabhupada, and it's just myself, Shruti Kirti, and Paramahamsa, and sitting at a table just 2 feet away from Srila Prabhupada. He's sitting across from me. And I give him the Rolex watch, and he goes, oh, Rolex. And he puts it on, and he has another watch on, so he has both watches on at that point. And he's looking, and he looks at me, and he begins lecturing on the purity of Lord Chaitanya's movement, how that we are only different from others because we are following purely these principles that Lord Chaitanya has presented, and that will be the success of our movement, is that if we follow everything purely. And he went on for maybe 20 minutes, a half hour, personally lecturing me on the purity of Lord Chaitanya's movement and how it was important not to spend a farthing of Krishna's money on sense gratification. And, you know, I felt from the very beginning he had seen all the way through me and knew that I had got this for myself, and this was my act of patrician redemption, giving it to him. But he was just extremely gracious and warm and strict all at the same time, you know, and Shruti Kirti and Paramahansa were more or less amazed at the talk too. It was just, you know, that he had taken so much time, and so I got to pay my obeisances and leave. And I think that was pretty much the last time I really had personal contact with Srila Prabhupada.
I do remember that the first real intimate exchange I had with Srila Prabhupada, and pretty much the last one, was when my mom sent me a sweater. My mother lives in England, and she sent me this really nice wool sweater. And New Vrindavan was a mud hole. It was, you know, just really dirty, and, you know, it was really hard to keep anything clean. So I looked at this beautiful sweater, and it was like kind of saffron in color. And I said, well, I can't wear this, you know, it's going to be trash in no time. I'll give it to Srila Prabhupada, you know. And so somehow I preserved it in the brahmachari ashram in a plastic bag, you know, kept it from getting dirty for probably a couple of months. And I was always thinking, oh, I can't wait to give this to Srila Prabhupada. And so then Prabhupada came to Boston when they first opened the printing press there. And it was a big occasion, and devotees from a lot of different cities went there, and we got in our panel truck and drove up, everybody from New Vrindavan. And so I'm clutching my sweater and, you know, really looking forward to it. And so we get there, and I'm trying to figure out, well, you know, how do I do this? You know, I'm not one of the high muckety mucks, you know, and they're all, you know, going to be with Prabhupada. And so one evening after Artik, everybody was gathered for darshan, and they had created with a backdrop a separate room behind the temple. And that's where Prabhupada gave darshan. And so I just kind of said, okay, it's now or never, and burst in the middle of all this. And everybody kind of looked, you know, who's this? What's he doing here? And I just sort of stammered, you know, for Prabhupada, I have this sweater my mother gave me, and I want you to have it. And Prabhupada said, oh, no, I can't take it. And he says, your mother gave this to you, you know, you take it, you know, I can't take this. And Prabhupada saw the look on my face. I was crushed, you know, I was just devastated. Oh, God. And so he saw that, and then he says, well, I think I said, oh, but Prabhupada, please, you know, I was begging for my life here. And he was very kind, and he said, all right, well, then we'll exchange. And so he started, he had a sweater with these buttons on it, these big oak buttons. It was really a beautiful sweater. And he started unbuttoning it. It was a cardigan, and he took it off, and I was crying, and the devotees in the room were crying. It was, you know, just like an example of loving exchange, and that, I don't know, it just bonded me so closely to Srila Prabhupada, and of course I'll never forget that. And it kept me going for a lot of years.
Well, in 1977, I went to India, and we went down to Mayapur first, and Srila Prabhupada was there, and Mayapur, he became ill. And I saw him brought in with a they were carrying him down the stairs in a chair. He has sunglasses and things. I had given Prabhupada a nice picture of Lord Katamsha at that time, an 8x10, and another Maharaji had given Srila Prabhupada a knitted chadar that she made. And Srila Prabhupada, he took it, but he immediately gave it to someone else. And the mother went over to Brahmananda Swami and expressed that she was very upset by that because she wanted Prabhupada to have it. And Brahmananda said that you gave it, that's enough. Srila Prabhupada accepted it, now it's his to do what he likes with it. And he often gives things away that he received because he only keeps what he needs.
So in this Hong Kong Hilton, and it was also very interesting that, you know, the rooms were so big and opulent, and in Prabhupada's sleeping room there was a bed, and he asked me to come in and make the bed for him before he was going to take rest. And he was so little compared to this big bed. It seemed so funny in one sense, but he just accepted it. And we held a press conference for Prabhupada. And at that time, Guru Maharajji was quite prominent, and he had quite a following in Hong Kong, as well as obviously in the United States and Europe. So so the reporters, and many reporters came. It was quite full, and they asked him questions. The first question they asked him was, "You preach against materialism and just the acquirement of wealth, etc. But here you are living in this very posh penthouse where the Sharvaret." They didn't say that, and he was. It was the best place in the Hong Kong Hilton, and he, why are you doing this? He was trying to point out the hypocrisy, that there was hypocrisy in Prabhupada was doing. And Prabhupada his consciousness was so clear. There wasn't any fog at all in Prabhupada's consciousness, and he was never intimidated by any kind of question, direct or whatever, trying to catch him. So he said, as far as I'm concerned, first Prabhupada started explaining philosophically that everything belongs to Krishna, and therefore renunciation means to use everything in Krishna's service. So you can imagine the reporter being completely blank when that one was presented to him. And then Prabhupada decided on a different tack to explain it to him. And he said, for me, as far as I'm concerned, I can live under a tree. And practically speaking, Prabhupada did that in 1977 when he was living in Bhubaneswar. He was bathing with, out of a well in the mornings in the Kumbh Melas. He didn't have that kind of attachment to opulence. But as far as I'm concerned, Prabhupada said, I could live under a tree. But if I was living under a tree and invited you all to a press conference, would you have come? Complete silence. The point was made, and it was obvious, and it was obvious to them too. So it was such a wonderful answer. Who could have thought of such an answer like that?